form of AI, an AI agent, you know, in the future, which is, when I say future, is the next couple of years, having an AI agent is like having someone with a PhD in your pocket. And you can ask them questions and they can help you. So I think for emerging markets, AI is really crucial for these markets to kind of have this leapfrog into development. The issue is really sovereignty, which is these emerging markets need to have their own infrastructure. The investment is quite important, but I think they need to start some way into kind of acquiring that technology to be able to stay at the same speed, if not, you know, faster than other markets. So I think it's doable, but really the wall in front of them to climb is really the financing part. As you know, AI-ready data centers, it's a lot of money. And it's not and the access to finance in these markets is usually tricky.
Mourad, do you have a comment?
No, everything has been said. Definitely, I strongly believe that if the initiative comes from government, because this is basically coming from a vision, so it's an acceleration of private company in the market that are fulfilling the vision of the country. So the guidance comes from the country. Everything related to finance comes as well from the country to attract local investors as well as foreign investors. So definitely this is the initial, I would say, point that is triggering today the acceleration of AI, adopting AI within the country. From my very humble experience, I can see with this coverage of Middle East, Africa, Turkey, Central Asia, the difference between the different countries that are ahead for deploying or addressing the AI era, and a lot of initiative comes from a vision that has been deployed by government, where they really attracted, I would say, investment. They have as well accelerating, or I would say easing the company to start really investing. And from this perspective, the most important things, and this is what really Solecrypt is quite, I mean, very much understanding the dynamics, is all about the ecosystem that you are building around you to deploy AI data centers within a country. It cannot come from one player and himself managing the entire. It needs to be extremely collaborative between the different key stakeholders. When I speak key stakeholders, it's really from authorities, regulation that has very much linked to government, as well as EPC contractors. We sometimes forget the importance of having as well a very strong contractors that understand the dynamic around data centers. I can see that some of the countries are very much ahead because they really built this industrial practice around EPC contractors. And of course, technology vendors, developers that have the link with the hyperscalers. So all of this is, I would say, the perfect recipe to move ahead into this direction.
Thank you. And now my question to you, Mourad. So from your background, you've probably seen a lot of DC projects, and either started by governments, hyperscalers, or local players. So what are the main, except financing, but how do you see the chances for the local players in the emerging markets to succeed when they have hyperscalers that are coming with expertise, coming with the financing, and knowing that there is always a place for the local players? How do you see the chances?
So for me, the very early engagement is very, very important. The very strong discussion around the planification, having a very strong understanding of the strategy of your partner. So we start discussing about technology, deployment of technology, understanding the local ecosystem on the way how it is approved from a regulation standpoint. So this is very important. We are talking about high voltage, we are talking about medium voltage. So the regulation from a country to another is completely different. So this is very important today to have this understanding from an approval process standpoint. So I believe this is one. As well, having a very strong awareness about the technology that is going to address AI. And one of the most important things is, the technology is very much evolving quite rapidly. So how to make sure that you are going to keep a certain dynamic around flexibility to make sure that your investment is not becoming obsolete within the next future, because things, again, are, I would say, are very, very fast. So having a very strong discussion around design. So we talk about scalability. We talk about, I would say, modularity on how I can invest while I am growing, while using the technology to have the very strong basis that can continuously deploy this technology. And of course, at the end of the day, we need to think about, not from a CapEx standpoint, because the data center lifecycle is quite long. I don't remember, but it was previously said on the previous panel. So the operation is absolutely key to think about it at the very, very beginning as well. So how am I going to deploy a very strong digital strategy within my design? How can I make sure that my design is embedding smart solution, having the right IoT communication on my device, making sure that this communication is going to be translated to collect data, and to make sure that this data will be translated to analytics, and from analytics embedding as well AI within the way how I'm going to operate my data center tomorrow. Because this is how you're gonna attract your customers, because your OpEx value is extremely strong, especially when it comes to continuously operate AI data centers.
Thank you. Amir, do you have any comment? You as a CEO of Solecrypt that will be competing with hyperscalers?
Test. Yeah, sorry. I think that for a lot of data center operators, when they look at emerging markets, be it Tunisia, Morocco, Nigeria, usually the common sense is to focus on the local market. As in, I'm going to open in Tunisia, let me understand how big the Tunisia market is. Okay, maybe Tunisia, I'll add Algeria and Libya with it to make it kind of bigger. But what people skip is the fact that today we have very fast highways for data, for compute, which are called fiber optics cables, subsea fiber optic cables. And the world is very, very well connected. Actually, there are fiber optic cables being laid down around Africa, around the world. And I think Africa, or these emerging markets specifically, should not underestimate their potential or their capacity to export compute by bringing in, like we've said, in the case of Solecrypt, renewable energy, or cheaper land, or better connectivity, or better access to power. And I think that should form usually a decent base, not to look at these emerging markets as a single player, but like as a regional player. And I think if the country is lucky enough to be on the periphery of developed market, be it, I don't know, Mexico, Brazil, or one of these countries, or Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, whatever, I think they can really play a major role. The kind of equation of AI, the AI revolution within these developed markets, and use that as a base for the country. As in, if I take the silly example of a manufacturer who moves from Germany to Tunisia, or from France to Morocco, it doesn't mean that whatever you're going to produce is going to be consumed within the country. You can kind of export, but have It will give you the skill set you need to be a powerhouse in that specific layer of the food chain. One last example is, for example, the auto part industry in Tunisia. Tunisia is actually, funny enough, people don't know it, but one of the leader in auto parts, electrical, specifically auto part manufacturers in the region. And it's not, this is basically the result of a lot of investment from offshore, and a lot of that manufacturing that moved from developed markets in Germany and France and Italy to Tunisia. I think what can happen now is we should see exactly the same phenomenon happening within the AI industry, with AI, is in the digital infrastructure, where countries like Tunisia can be really serve as a bridge, a digital bridge between Africa and Europe.
One last question. It's not an IT. It's not about it's a political question. So we see now a lot of conflicts, and some analysts say that the globalization is coming to an end. Do you see such thing as an advantage, or would it be enhancing our activity as a player in the digital infrastructure, or it will stop it? And always we keep in mind that we are here. We have the African continent or African countries as a central point.
So the slowdown we're seeing in globalization, which has happened in probably Trump's first term in the White House, I think it's political and social, as in they want to bring jobs back to the US, they want to bring jobs back to Europe, and they want to stop the globalization, because globalization that happened in the 80s and the 90s served countries like China, India, and other emerging markets in terms of taking a whole class of poor people out of poverty. But the counterproductiveness of that is that it created a lot of unemployment and unhappy people in the Western Hemisphere, and that's kind of the reality. And hence we have this rise of populism. So the reverse of globalization that we're seeing, the main purpose is to bring jobs back. Within a data center, you're not bringing much jobs back. So in reality, I think if we're gonna go into a period of global wars, Europe is already at war, Middle East, wherever, Asia we'll see, but Latin America, I mean, at least we can see that there is a global phenomenon where there's an increase of uncertainty. As a business leader, is actually diversify my site of production and not concentrate my production within one jurisdiction, even be it the United States of America. When I talk to people in Europe and they tell me, oh, but Tunisia, I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. I'm no politician, or I'm not a political analyst, but I think Tunisia is less likely to go into a global war than a lot of countries in the periphery of Europe. So which one is safer? In reality, we don't know. But I think the best way to look at it is to really say that you diversify your source of, I'm going to say, compute, or your source of intelligence into other centers. Of course, you have to be aware of the geopolitical, geographical situation. But I think it's very hard to compare Industry 3.0, which is very, staff heavy or employment heavy, with the digital infrastructure of Industry 4.0, where in a data center, you don't need that much people. That's the way I look at it.
Mourad, what's your point of view?
My point is, so from a political standpoint, the decrease of the globalization is not really affecting data center industry. I don't believe there is a frontier within the data center industry. It's more an economical topics today, because it is very much linked to the population, to the number of population per country, and this is where you have the opportunity to increase your business. So from a private company standpoint, even if, yes, most of the hyperscalers or the web giants are US-based company, but these guys are still spending billions outside the US, from building new data centers or partnering with developers within certain country. So recently in UAE, there is a massive project called Stargate around OpenAI. It's a consortium between OpenAI, Cisco, and Oracle. So you can see that a lot of investment keep going. This is the same happening in countries like India, Southeast Asia, Australia. So from a technology standpoint, I don't think that's going to impact the deployment of data centers, because still this company will have to go where there is opportunity, and this is very much linked to the dynamic of the country from a population standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, to get things done within the context that are fitting their roadmap and business strategy.
Add one test. You know, if you take any piece of clothes or any fruit you buy or meat, it's required to say where it's coming from. So if you look at the tags in your shirt or something, it's made in Vietnam, made in China, made in this. If you're consuming data, who knows where your Facebook pictures are stored? No one knows. When you go on ChatGPT and ask for a query in ChatGPT, the reply you have or the chart that ChatGPT gives you, it doesn't say, by the way, this chart, the compute of this chart was done in that data center in Germany, or we basically don't know. So there is this part of almost indifference in terms of where the intelligence is produced or where the data is processed for now. And this is why I think we're being shielded as an industry or ecosystem from this deglobalization we're witnessing in the manufacturing industry.
But if I may link your question as well from a data sovereignty standpoint, if you take the example of Africa, and I think it's a very good example, the sovereignty comes mainly from outside. So all the cabling stations are landing on certain of the ports in Africa, from west to east, north, and south. Something that is still missing within this continent is everything related to the intra-connection between the countries. And again, then we come back to your point of politics and partnership between countries on how to ease this intra-connection. So this is something as well as a comment from my side that can be considered as equation to be solved between the different country or the surrounded country, neighbors country, to accelerate more the deployment of AIDC.
Thank you. Do we have questions?
Everyone's still digesting the food.
I think this is the lunch effect.
Everybody's having a nap.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Mourad. So we will continue then the discussion in panels.